morning, afternoon, or evening. Welcome to Christmassy. I'm Talking Waffles. I'm your host, Ileana. So we are coming to you live from Toronto, Ontario, and I don't have my headphones, so it sounds really strange to me to be recording the podcast and not being able to hear how it sounds until I'm done editing, when I begin editing, so that's really weird. It's super strange. And I'm not in my usual location of the bathroom. I am in a regular person room, so I'm hoping the audio will sound okay. Again, I don't have my headphones, so I'm really just recording this episode and hoping for the best by the end of the 20 minutes that it doesn't sound horrible, but if it does, I apologize. But hey, at least I brought my stuff with me to make sure that you get a special Christmas episode this week and next week, because we here at I'm Talking Waffles are here to please the fans. Management, me, everybody. We're here to make you happy and give you some happiness and entertainment throughout the day. Now, I don't know why I sound like a radio host there or like an advertisement, but yeah. So before we jump into our Christmassy themed episode, I'm going to give a pretty brief overview of like my adventures here in Toronto so far. Toronto, I've been to Toronto before, but it's been quite a while. And I typically, when I go, it's just for like an event or a conference or like to visit a museum or something. So being able to be here without like an official agenda was really cool. Although yesterday my official agenda was to Christmas shop. So that was a lot of fun because Toronto is so different than the city that I live in. It's like, this is like massive. And honestly, it's what I imagine New York to be like. Like there are so many lights and buildings and just everything happening around you. And so it was really cool. And I got to go for a nice walk. So I went to the Eaton Center to pick up Christmas gifts for my family. So that was a fun experience. It's a ritzier mall, like way more ritzier than the mall in my city. So it was honestly a little bit more difficult trying to find stuff because my family doesn't really need like luxury items, nor do they really care too much about luxury items. So I was like, okay, where do I find this stuff? Like I know what I wanted to find, but it was honestly a little difficult finding it. But the experience of being in that mall was so nice. So then I also went to Yorkville. Like we walked to Yorkville. I was like, I don't know, 30-minute walk, maybe more. But oh my goodness, there's like, I think it's like tornadoes or hurricanes, something in Michigan, I believe it is making it so windy here. So like the whole walk, I honestly felt like I was gonna like blow into the sky, and there was like a bunch of stuff flying around, like garbage flying into places that garbage shouldn't be. The gates, there was like this construction gate that kept flying, opened and closed, and it was terrifying because I thought it was gonna blow off and like kill me. So too many Final Destination movies, I think, have permanently damaged my poor brain and made me like, oh no, like I'm gonna die in the most ridiculous way possible. So yeah, there was that. And so Yorkville was nice. It kind of reminded me of Gastown in Vancouver, minus the hit and run. And if you haven't listened to that episode, you should listen to I Witnessed the Hit and Run in Gastown, which is one of the I'm Talking Waffles episodes based on my little experience when I visited my sisters in Vancouver back in August, I believe it was. So yeah, it was a lot like Gastown. It was really, really cool. And I loved the buildings. I loved the vibe of the whole place. And it was just so cool. And again, very ritzy. Toronto seems to have like kind of a ritzy feel versus my city, where it's more of like a homey kind of nice little place to just chill and relax. Like it's like a big city with a small town feel. Whereas Toronto is big city, go, 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 go. So honestly, I think I've grown to like the city a little bit more than I used to, because I used to hate Toronto. When I was a kid and we'd go to Toronto, I'd just be like, Toronto, like, I don't really like it. But now that I've gotten older, I honestly can see the magic in it, and I think it's super cool, and I'm really happy to be able to just explore the town and the city and do all that fun stuff. So far, an amazing experience, and I'm going to be meeting up with some of my work colleagues who actually work here in Toronto. When I'm recording this, it's next week, so later next week for me. So I'm really excited about that, and yeah, it's going to be a great time. So, enough about that. We are here for Christmas, and I understand that. We are here for Christmas. This is a Christmas episode. So, let's talk Christmas. Let's talk waffles, and let's talk snow stories. Now, perhaps you're wondering, Ileana, what the heck is a snow story? And I'm going to tell you what a snow story is. Basically, we are going to talk about stories that have taken place in the snow. This is just a bunch of random stories that taken place in the snow. So the first snow story I wanted to talk about was how when I was a teenager, me and my friend almost died because of the snow. So we were going to go pick up our friend who was at a different house, and it was super, super snowy that day, and I'm pretty sure there was freezing rain as well. And we were just driving along, and there's no cars on the road, thank goodness. And as we're going like down the road, the car suddenly, like, I don't know what happened, but it starts to spin like out of control, and we actually go flying into a ditch, and we're literally an inch away from the tree. And I remember as it spun, I was like, oh, well, I guess I'm about to die now. And I was like, ugh, that was kind of a sad way to go. And then we didn't die, and I was like, oh, okay, cool, we're not dead. But we were so close to crashing into a tree, but we were somehow managed not to hit into a tree, which was good. But now we're stuck in a ditch, and it's freezing cold, and her brother is in the back as well. And we're like, what the heck do we do? And she's like, oh my goodness. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And her brother's like, oh my goodness. So thankfully she came prepared, and she had like a bunch of blankets and like warm stuff in her trunk in case of emergencies. So bless her soul. So like I was wrapped up in a blanket, and her brother like goes under the car to try to like dig away some of the snow, because obviously the snow is stuck. Cause she tried like getting out of the ditch, but like we couldn't. We tried pushing it as well, but there was too much snow that somehow got under it when we tumbled. So the car itself, it didn't land upside down. It was like on an edge. So like imagine like an angle, and we were just like sitting on that angle. So we didn't go upside down. We did hit sideways though, and it was pretty scary. And her brother is trying to dig like the car out with, I think it was like a Tupperware container from like her lunch or something, and he's like digging it out. She put me in like a nice blanket. She's like, it's okay, you just like chill there, Leanna, I'm gonna go and see if we can get some help. And so she stands like near the car trying to like wave down anybody who could help us, and it's like dark outside too at this point. And so she has like her car lights on, kind of like flashing the hazards, so hopefully somebody, and hopefully not a murderer, will come and save us. And I'm like low-key paranoid that a murderer is gonna come and just kill us. But I mean, I don't think her car was, it wasn't a new car, so I don't think a murderer would really want to steal the car or anything like that, so I think we were in luck. So we're like waiting, she's waving down, and anytime someone would drive by, she would be like, ah, no, what a jerk! And like, because obviously we're very frustrated, because we just wanted to go pick up our friend. Now, here we are, stuck in a ditch, snow everywhere, no one wants to help us, and we're like concerned, and she doesn't want to call her dad either, or like anything like that, because like, then you have to hear like the lecture, like, oh, like, why did you get stuck in a ditch, like that kind of stuff. And so she's like, no, we're not doing that. And I'm like, okay, understandable, because you know, teenagers are teenagers. And so we're just kind of standing there in the ditch, and eventually this guy with this massive like pickup truck comes up, and he stops, and we're like, oh, thank goodness, because we could not get this car out. And then the guy comes out and he goes, oh, hey, like, are you people okay? And we're like, I mean, we're stuck, but yeah. And he's like, here, let me help. And apparently she actually told me this the other day when I was talking to her about this story, which is how I remembered it. Apparently this is illegal, what this guy did, which I didn't know, but he like hooked something onto our car, and he literally used his car to pull our car out. And I'm not sure like what she meant by it was illegal. I feel like I missed part of what she was saying. Sorry about that, my friend. And so this guy like pulls us out of the ditch, and he's like, okay, I gotta go now, bye. And like he just speeds away, and we're like, oh, we're safe. So then we get in the car, and then we drive and we go pick up our friend, and like we were fine. We were a little bit shook, to be honest, because obviously we could have almost died, but we didn't, and none of us were hurt, nothing was broken, we're all safe. And so we're like, oh, that was interesting. And speaking of the same friend, she and I, we drove to Toronto once upon a time to go see our friend. This was like a spontaneous Toronto trip, and we went to go see a mutual friend of ours who also lived in Toronto. And so we went to Toronto. It was a lot of fun, which is funny because I'm in Toronto right now. And we're like, yeah, we have fun. And then on our way back, I remember it was midnight, and it was so snowy, and there was freezing rain, and her windshield wipers broke. And so we're coming down the highway of Toronto in this horrible, horrible weather, and her windshield wipers broke, and we could not see a thing. And it was honestly terrifying, because we're like an hour and a bit, like we're far away from like where we lived, and we're like, okay, like this is terrifying. So I remember she had to pull over at one point and just like throw windshield wiper fluid on her car and like scrub down the windows and be like, okay, let's keep going. And we had to do that so many times. And then suddenly, as soon as like, I think it was like, I don't know, 10 minutes past midnight or so, and all of these massive trucks came out of nowhere. Like big trucks that you see obviously on the highway, but like a million of them. I don't know where they all came from, but we were literally stuck behind all of these trucks. Everywhere you look, trucks in front of us, trucks on every single lane, trucks behind us. It was horrible because we couldn't get around the trucks, and they're driving at the slowest speed possible, which I mean, I guess is good because obviously it's really snowy, but when you're behind a truck in a snowstorm, there is so much snow and sludge and dirt that gets thrown right at your car. So to make a long story short, we survived. It took a very long time to get home, but we survived and it was horrible. And we never went to Toronto again after that. And I feel like that was why we never went to Toronto again after that, because it was honestly horrible. That was a scary time. It reminds me of another time. Honestly, these snow stories are kind of depressing because I'm just talking about cars right now. But I swear there's like some happy ones. Here's a happy one. I'm going to give you a happy one. I remember there was a time when me and my brother, who's 1 year older than me, he and I were like super, super close as kids. I think because of like the ages. In this story, we were super, super close. Best of best friends. We did everything together. And this one time we were trying to make this massive snowman, which I think is a goal of every single child, to make the world's biggest snowman. And we're just rolling up all these snowballs and stuff, having a great grand old time. And then we're like, okay, how do we make the snowman even bigger? And so we actually call our dad, who hates the snow. Like, if you think you hate the snow, my dad hates it even more than you could possibly imagine. He despises the snow. He hates it so much he doesn't even call it snow. He calls it white precipitation, because just the word snow just makes him like, ugh, I hate it. So the white precipitation. And so we convinced him, I don't know how, maybe because we were cute kids, and we're like, please, please, please lift our snowballs. And so my dad actually came out, and despite hating the snow, he helped us lift these massive snowballs to make this huge snowman. And so once it was done, we just added more snow on it, because once the initial like balancing of the snowballs was done, we just added more snow to make it even bigger. And we got like a giant carrot. We got the biggest branches that we could find, and we made, honestly, a really nice big snowman. I think we have a photo of it somewhere. Not really sure where I could even show it, so you just have to believe me here that we made a giant snowman as kids. And again, as kids, everything is giant, but I honestly remember it being giant, so I'm pretty sure it would be giant even to an adult, because my dad actually had to lift up the snowballs and stuff, and they were big. So it was a big snowman, and it was great. I love that snowman. And we put it in the backyard as well, because unfortunately, people love to knock down snowmen in the wintertime. Like, you put them on your lawn, someone is bound to like kick it over and break it, and it's really sad. So we did it in the backyard so no one would break it, and so that was nice. We had a nice big snowman for a while, and then we had to watch it melt, and it was honestly really traumatizing. But yeah, that's a happy snow story, aside from the traumatizing part at the end where it melts. Another story that I remember about the snow and driving, I used to have a car, and I mentioned this before. It was a 1999 Toyota Corolla. His name was Philip, and he was my first car ever. I haven't had any other cars since, because my building is ridiculously priced for parking, and I don't really want to pay parking and insurance at the exact same time, because that hurts the wallet, you know? So I used to have a car. I loved it. I still have pictures of it, and I have great memories with it. I even have a playlist called Rest in Peace Philip, You Beautiful Boy, where it's all the songs I ever played in the car, and some new ones as well that I would play if I had the car, and it's amazing. You can find it on Spotify if you want. And basically, I remember I was driving to go to a New Year's then with some of my friends, and it was a little ways out of the way. It was like an hour away from where it was. So I get in my car, and it was the worst driving conditions I've ever experienced. It was horrible. Like, I know you shouldn't drive in bad weather conditions, but come on, it's a New Year's party. And like, I was not happy. I don't think, like, imagine not even being able to see like a foot in front of you. It was that kind of snow, and it was the worst ever. And the street lights weren't working very well. It was snowing nonstop. My poor car was just not having it. I couldn't see anything. I was trying to like follow this one guy. Like, there's this one guy in front of me, like basically the whole time. And so I just followed him the whole time, because his light was the only thing I could see, because it's the kind of snow that you don't know which lane is the right lane to be on. It was horrible. Honestly, I don't know how I survived. I don't know how I didn't die. But yeah, that was a horrible time. And anytime I think about it, I'm like, I can't believe I did that. I don't think I have any luck left in me at this point. Like, how I survived that, I'm at a loss for words. But yeah, I somehow survived driving in horrible weather conditions. So yeah, if you think I'm a horrible driver, then look at that story, you know? I'm not a horrible driver. I survived the worst weather ever. Yeah, take that. Another story, which again, it's winter in cars. In Canada, it's just a common occurrence. But this is actually a story that my grandma told me when I was very, very young. And basically, back in the old days, my grandma's like 80 now, so you can figure out how long ago it was when she was like 20 or 30 or younger, something like that. But she used to drive. My grandma doesn't drive anymore, obviously, because she's 80, but back in the day, she used to have a car. And like, imagine one of these cute little old people cars, like from back in those days. And she's driving along in a wintry, I don't know if it's a wintry night or wintry morning. I'm going to say wintry night just to make the ambience a little bit better. And she was driving, and she ended up getting stuck. Again, as you do when you are a Canadian person in the snow in the wintertime, and she gets stuck. And it's the kind of snow, again, like that snow that I was driving in the story I just told, completely white out. You can't see anything. You can barely see your hand in front of your face. It's so snowy. And so she's stuck and she doesn't know how to get out. Like she's like stuck, and there's no one around and it's cold and she needs to get home and she doesn't really know like what she should do. Because again, like cell phones, none of that existed at that time either. And so she's just like obviously distraught about like what the heck's gonna happen. And suddenly, out of nowhere, this guy like comes up, helps her get the car out of like the big snowbank I assume that it was stuck in. And then when she goes over to like thank him, bam, he's gone. She always tells a story like he was an angel or a ghost or something like that. And she says that she didn't see any footprints. She went to thank him. He wasn't there anymore. He was just gone. He helped her and boom, he was gone. And she said that that was like so interesting and it always stuck with her because she doesn't know like what happened. Like my grandma really does believe in angels and that stuff, so I think that she's very touched by that story. And I think that it's a really nice story, and it's especially like timely around the holidays, especially like if you do believe in that kind of stuff. There's my grandma's story about her encounter, and I think that that's just super fascinating, and I think it's just such a nice story, and I'm happy that she got the help and she was able to get into the car and then do whatever my grandma was off to do. I don't know what people did in that time, dance or something, I don't know. So yeah, those are some of the snow stories that come to my head. I also wanted to, as I do when I have like a collection of stories, I like to share other people's stories. Whoa, something just fell. I like to share a collection of other people's stories as well. So let's highlight some of other people who I've never met's snow stories. This one is from Hivaley. Apologies if I say the name wrong here. While in college in suburban New York, my band and myself were driving back to school from a concert in the city that we played. We were about a quarter mile away from the entrance to the college on a road that is one lane in each direction and about to come down a long, snowy, icy hill. We were in my parents' Ford Explorer with hundreds of pounds of gear in the back. Think like amps, drums, so on and so forth. In front of us was this very small sports car that had zero business driving in this weather. The opposing direction of traffic was a bumper to bumper, waiting for a light at the top of the hill. I knew as soon as we approached the beginning of the downhill slope that the car in front of me wasn't going to be having a smooth journey down this hill, so I gave them hundreds of feet in front of me. As we come over the hill, me pumping the brake like old Nikes, I see the red sports car perpendicular to the traffic on the other side of the road, in our lane still, but completely out of control, sliding sideways down this hill. By this point, it was too late for me to stop my car, and I had to make a decision. Do I hit the sports car, knowing there's no way to stop in time, or do I try to squeeze between it and the opposing direction of cars? So I went for it. I'll never forget the look on the faces of the drivers as I passed by and squeezed with inches on either side of my car between the sports car and the stopped traffic. My bandmates couldn't believe that we made it through, and everyone walked away unscathed, and then we got very drunk. That is honestly, it's terrifying. It reminds me, though, of a story about when I had Philip, rest in peace, you beautiful boy, and I was driving to work, and it was super, super, super snowy, and this was like 5 a.m. because I was a supervisor at a grocery store at this point, and I remember I was going up a hill, and there was this guy in the car. He was also going up the hill, and this is before the snowplows even like came and cleared the road, so this is like fresh fallen snow, 5 a.m. Me in this car, the only car in the whole road basically, and he's going up. I can tell he does not have winter tires on because the way he's like sliding and spinning, and I had winter tires on and I was still sliding and spinning. Like it was that bad of wintry snowy stuff, and he's going up a hill, and I'm like, oh my goodness, like can he not do this please? And this man stops at the top of the hill, and where I am, I cannot stop at the hill unless I pull like my e-brake, and I'm like, oh no, like what is he doing? And then he tries to turn around. This man tries to turn around, and I'm like, are you kidding me? There is no way he can turn around because I'm literally on the hill behind him on a one-way street, and he's trying to turn around, and that makes no sense because if he turns around, he's gonna hit into me because I'm behind him. Obviously, I'm keeping a good distance behind him because it's snowy, and you should never be too close to a car like that, ever, especially in the winter. And this man is trying to turn around, and then he gets stuck. He gets stuck halfway through his turn, and so now he's blocking the entire road area in like horizontally, and I'm still pointing up, and I'm like, what the heck do I do? Like I don't want to back out because I'm halfway up a hill, and I don't trust like the hill, I don't trust the snow, and I don't trust reversing on a hill covered in snow while the snow is continuing to fall. And this guy is just trying to turn around, and I'm like, what is he doing? Like, please don't do this. Like, I don't know what to do. And then I guess he decides that it's not a good idea because he gets out of his car and he digs away some of the snow, and I'm still there. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm just stuck, and I have like my e-brake, and I'm just hoping that my car doesn't fall down the hill while this guy is trying to turn. Then he gets back in his car, and then he turns back the way he was, and he continues up the hill, and I'm like, dude, why? Why did you do that? Why did you scare me like that? And then he just continues on his way. And then I eventually got up the hill, and I continued on my way to work, and I don't understand what he was trying to do. I don't know if maybe he couldn't see me behind him and he just wanted to turn out, but it's a one-way street. You can't even turn in the first place. So honestly, I don't know what he was doing, but this story reminds me of that. This story is most unfortunate. Cats of Northern Darkness says, years ago, I was walking to work after a massive snowstorm. Some plowing had been done and there were many snowdrifts that toppled 6 feet tall. I made the mistake of not peeing before I left the house. So with about 2 blocks left, I was getting pretty desperate. I decided to cut across a parking lot, and the ingress was blocked by one of those huge snow piles, which I hadn't seen when I entered. I decided it would take less for me to climb over it than to go back out and around, so I did, barely keeping hold of my bladder. I got to the top and promptly sunk in up to my hips. As I struggled to get out, I couldn't hold anymore and peed myself. That is yikes. I've never had to do that, thank goodness. But I remember always being fascinated by those gigantic piles of snow, especially like as a kid, but also terrified of them because like you climb to the top and you're like, am I gonna like fall through this and suffocate and die? But no, this guy, he just peed himself, and that's, I think, worse. This one is from JHC1415, and they say, when I was in the 3rd grade, there was a massive blizzard. Our school got an early dismissal, so we ended at around noon. Unfortunately, it was already too late and all the buses had a very tough time trying to make it to the school. A few hours later, our bus finally made it, but at that point, the journey home had just begun. I lived in a fairly hill neighborhood, and despite the buses having chains, that didn't help, and there were accidents on every major street, bringing traffic to a standstill. We finally made it off to the major streets and near where my house was. Unfortunately, there was an unplowed hill between me and the home. The bus tried to make it up, but got stuck. It wasn't that far, but I didn't think they want 3rd graders walking through a snowstorm unsupervised, so I waited for the truck to come and help us get unstuck. But they were stuck in the same traffic jams that I mentioned earlier and took hours to get us. In the end, I eventually made it home, but it wasn't until around 7 p.m. My parents were worried sick the entire time. Oh, that's horrible. Obviously, I'm not a parent, but knowing that your kid was supposed to come around noon and didn't get home, your 3rd grade kid coming home at 7 p.m. and like the snowstorms and literally every single bus and car and things getting in major accidents, I would probably pass out from fear. Which, this reminds me again of a story. When I was on a bus, I used to take public transportation when I was in college. And I remember there was this time, well, there were 2 times. One time when I was coming back from my internship, the bus got stuck in the snow for like 2 hours. And so I didn't get home till like way later because the internship was till 6 p.m. I don't think I got home till 9 p.m. that day because the bus got stuck. And then the other time with the snow was I was taking the bus back from college to my apartment at the time. And when it went to make a turn, this poor bus, it spun and got like stuck in the corner because it tried to make like a tight turn and could not because of the road conditions, and it got stuck. But luckily it was only like a block away from where my stop was to get to my apartment, so I just got off and went home. But that was horrible and very scary. There's nothing more terrifying than that feeling of being in a moving vehicle that slips on the snow and ice because you don't know if you're just about to die or not. Like, you have no idea. And it's weird what your brain thinks of when you start to spin. Because I remember when I was in my friend's car and we were teenagers, I was horribly calm, which is weird for the person that I am because I'm not a calm person. I am very anxious about everything in the world. And so the fact that I was just like, oh, I'm going to die by getting hit by a tree. This sucks. Oh, well. Like, that was my thought process. And then the other time, like, in the car, I was like, oh, it's going to be so cold. I don't want my body to freeze. Or, like, on the bus, I was like, oh, no, this sucks. So, like, I don't know, like, I remember thinking, oh, no, it sucks. I have a midterm soon. I remember that's what was my thought process at that time. Not for this, like, the internship one, but for me coming back from college. I remember that was the midterm time, and I was like, oh, no. So, yeah, it's really strange when you think about, like, what are your last thoughts going to be when you die? You don't really know because you never know when you're going to die, but, like, It's interesting how some of my last thoughts could have been like, oh man, I have a midterm though, or oh, this is a bad way to die. It's very interesting, but yeah, just food for thought here. So with that, let's jump over to everybody's favorite part of the show. That's right, it's the fun fact of the day. So today's fun fact is, dun da da! The storm of the 20th century took place in March 1993. It was iconic for its hurricane wind forces and massive size and stretched from Canada to mid-America. The blizzard caused roughly 300 deaths and 10 million power outages. That's horrible. So if you don't live in Canada, or you've never experienced like a blizzard or snow for that matter, it's honestly as bad as it sounds. Like I know that snow itself, like it's really pretty and it's super cool. And honestly, you can actually go ice skating on the sidewalks when there's freezing rain because it's just a huge layer of ice. And I've seen that happen in my city. It's actually really funny. So snow itself isn't bad, but it can do some really horrible things. So yeah, I don't know if this episode is more like a warning about snow or how I feel about snow, but yeah, snow itself is really pretty. Just in case this episode has made you terrified of snow, don't be terrified of snow, just be cautious. So with that, I'm going to bid you a great rest of your morning, great rest of your evening, great rest of your night, great rest of your apocalypse, and great rest of your snowy endeavors. Okay, bye!